All right, it's Dalamar versus Cliffy. This is round two of Kefka. It's kind of a strange situation because both Metis and I dropped out, having trouble playing games and whatnot, and not being terribly active. And so we have been replaced by Dalamar and Cliffy, who were the highest finishers who did not quite make the initial bracket from weekly opens. Dalamar's first turn, and his hand does look really problematic. Cliffy's hand looks much better here. I believe this is the final deciding set of the match, that it is currently tied 1-1. The winner will go on to face Delial in the quarterfinals, and the winner of that will go on to face Akiyama in the semifinals, and the winner of that will go on to face Turds in the finals. So there is a direct path from here to the finals. Every match not related to this one has been completed. Again, this is Metis and I's fault. Apologies. This does look like a really difficult hand to start with. So let's look at Cliffy's hand first, per usual. And I notice Cliffy has sevens down, seven to the left, five to the right, six up. Not only is there no direction, or only one direction that Dalamar runs even. I was going to say there's not a direction he beats, but there's no direction he runs even. There is a direction he runs even and does beat. That 2735 is a good card here. So one thing you can do here that I think is a very reasonable strategy, and this was not really in my toolbox until recently, is just drop something in six. Just say, I need the game right facing. I need that more than anything else. I'm happy for it to be side to side, and I need it to be right facing. And if I go in six, at least you have nothing safe to put in three or nine. I don't have anything safe to put there either, right? I'm not like super excited to be playing this. Of course, you do have something safe to put in three or nine. Sorry, I'm currently multitasking, so I like can't brain properly. But there's of course a seven to the left. That sucks. Okay. In that case, I would still say your hand, like, talk to your cards, right? Top card wants sideways game going right, ideally. Second card, upright. Third game, sideways. Fourth game, sideways, slight preference for downwards. Slight preference for right. Fifth card definitely wants to go to the right. The whole hand wants to go to the right, so I think you should be looking to stick something in three or nine, and specifically something, this is asking a lot, that covers 3573 in one and 5237 in 9. Is this possible? Well, to cover 3573 in 1, you could play something like 3535 in 3. No, that's the card you need to play off. So 3635 in 3. Then you cover 1. But they also have safety in 7. Jesus. Oh, this is horrible. Um, yeah, this is a horrible hand. This is one of the reasons I really desperately hope the finals rule set has changed. Because imagine if there was like no plus here. Incidentally, the rules are same plus combo random. Oh, no plus one. I need to keep that in mind. But imagine there was no plus here. Like, there's just no hope of ever having play. They just play any one of those corners, and it's just safe to your hand forever. So I think if you don't want randoms to be entirely decided by the random, if you want to give any chance at all for some kind of play, not a very acceptable rule set. All right, Dalamar tries 4. He doesn't actually have recaptures that are safe because 5237 covers those. Does he counter cover 5237, right? So the idea for Cliffy, I think the standard idea is you play 1 or 7. Dalamar goes the other of 1 or 7, and then you can take with 5237 in 2 or 8. Are there combos back in 5 against either of those moves? I don't think so, but also I'm not going to blame Dalamar here because this starter looked appalling. Like, how do you play a hand that is facing 3 safe corners? Right? Like, oh, with just no coverage. Because, like, the 5622 does not actually cover 7s down. Yeah. So you just had no coverage of 3 corners. I wonder if there was a setup in 5. The thing is, if they're safe but for a setup, then probably move them 1 over and they're still going to be really strong. So it's not even like 5 is all that exciting, even if you do have setups from 5, which my suspicion is you don't. But I will note Pig 3-5-3-5 and 5 gives you one directional coverage of 3-5-7-3 and 1, gives you a same and 2. It gives you a same and 8 against 6-5-3-2 and 7. So we're left with only 5-2-3-7 in 9, which it gives a plus in 6. So maybe there's a case for 3-5-3-5 or something like that in 5, just saying I at least have one angle of approach against anything you can do. It's something. I don't know. I played a move like that recently. In fact, in the games I was playing against Midas on this rule set, when I had a really bad hand, I ended up holding that game, but I was lost, and it was not. It was not a good idea. Um, so Cliffy does take the move in 7. This is very logical. I think if Dalamar is going to go in 1, which he should go in, you kind of got to grab a card where you can. We have to think really carefully about which cards we still want in the hand. We're going to be stuck with 5-6-2-2 because that can't flip 4. I think you need to keep 3-6-3-5. I think that's just the best card in your hand. 5-5-5-2 is so similar to 5-6-2-2, but it is your highest down power. Maybe you'll need a capture there. I guess I'd probably play Pig in 1. That allows 5-1-5-6 to capture in 2, which sets up a same in 5, so maybe you have to put a 6 facing out. Maybe you have to play 3-6-3-5 in 1, then 5-2-3-7 in 2 is their play. Well, I almost have an idea. My idea was 5-6-2-2 and 6, setting up a same in 3, and if they go 3, you have a nice double capture in 5. The problem is it's plussed by 3-5-7-3 and 8 because you have a 5 facing down from your 5-5-5-2. Oh, what a nightmare. Do you have anything else that might be appealing in 6 there? Any setup potential? I don't really think so. All right, you can also meet 2 with 1, but you really have to have seen everything super well. It's hard to pull off. And your only capture in 1 is Pig 3-5-3-5, which is not the ideal card to be using there. Can you go 5? If you go 5, they surely just go 3 with 4-4-7-3, and they're just locking everything in. Unless you can go 5 threatening 8. Can you do that? Well, maybe. Maybe you can play 5-6-2-2 and 5, threatening 5-5-5-2 and 8. Seems so unlikely you don't lose that endgame, though. I mean, this really looks like a loss to me. He does go 3-6-3-5 and 1. That's very clearly the critical move to make, but I don't think it works. It's also possible Cliffy could just play 8. I think I think 8 is not right though. 8 gives Dalamar something else to attack that I think he's slightly pleased to attack. What would you put in 8 anyway? Maybe a 3 up so you have threats in 5. Probably the 3 up, 3-5-7-3. And actually, it's pretty hard for Dalamar to go anywhere there either. This random was horrible. Yeah, that looks very strong as well. Well, we'll see what Cliffy does. Yeah, he just goes 2. So, is there anything fun to do in... Okay, what about 5-5-5-2 and 6? Any point? I think no. Like, it does set up this plus in 5 that if you get it, you probably hold. but they just block 5, and your 5-6-2-2 is just so useless. Anything else? Nah, I think this is pretty horrible. Really hard spot to start. One of the reasons I prefer, well, it's hard. I think one of my weaknesses as a player is okay, so let's compare weakness and a strength. One of my strengths is I evaluate slightly bad positions as quite bad. And so I am good at taking kind of slightly to quite bad positions and finding ways to navigate them into something that is a tie rather than letting the trouble fester, the dangers fester. Something I am not as good at, and I think I'm bad at, is in lost positions, I do tend to just lose. If I get a lost position, I will often not find a way that is kind of actually tricky for my opponent to figure out. I'm probably just going to lose. And there are some players that clearly get lost positions and hold them at a much higher rate than I do. And I mean at like the same points in the game. I'm not like, well, somehow they hold when they're lost on move 8 and I don't. No, we both lose those games. Um, okay, 3 just grabbing safe, not safety, but yeah, safety is very reasonable here. I should have considered this. I didn't notice he had this high facing out. And at least now there's the onus on Cliffy. He has to make a move. And for instance, if he goes 4-4-7-3 and 5, Dalamar ties with 3-5-3-5 and 6. So this was a good idea. This was a good idea. I should probably stop and try to find the win. 3-5-7-3 and 5 looks pretty likely to be a win. No, that gives up a plus and 8. I can do pluses. I know math. So does 4-4-7-3. So actually, if he's going to go 5, 5-1-5-6 seems like the only serious option. Is that true? I think that is true. That means 4-4-7-3 and 5, you can meet with 5-6-2-2 and 9, which is just a funny move, so I would enjoy making that one. Okay, so because you don't want to take 8 immediately because they have their plus back in 6. Anyway, so 5-1-5-6 and 5. You're down 6-4. Do you have anything? They have this plus and 8 that's a problem. Oh, it's really close to holding. What's a funny move there is pig and 9. Okay, now I understand you don't have a threat in 8, but why I think it's funny, so it just loses anyway, is if Cliffy had to go 8 there, he almost can't take 9, and if he couldn't take 9, that would tie. Cliffy has picked up 5-1-5-6. I think this is headed for 5, and I think that's curtains. But I think Dalamar made a nice move in 3. Like, I do think that put up more resistance than anything I was looking at. He goes in 6. Okay, but now he has 2 7s facing down, and you can't quite exploit it. I was thinking 5-6-2-2 and 9, but 4-4-7-3 and 8. 4-4-7-3 and 8 gets you. But actually, you're really close to like doing well there. Like, if not for 4-4-7-3 and 8, you actually win there. So 5-6-2-2 and 5 is the obvious move, but they take with 3-5-7-3 and 8, and you lose. If you play 3-5-3-5 and 5, you just lose. You don't have any setups in 8. Yeah, I mean, I would play 5-6-2-2 and 9 here, but Cliffy did find it. Nicely done by Cliffy here. Uh, Very bad hand for Dalamar, though. Trying to think. Oh, yeah, what was I trying to say? I was trying to say, I think I defend lost positions badly. I don't give my opponents enough chances to screw up. Terrible lost positions. I think I defend bad positions, but not really bad positions well. Like I think if you kind of have like skill at skill when winning, skill when ahead, skill when even, skill when behind, skill when way behind. Ideally, you're never way behind, but we're all way behind sometimes. I think my skill when way behind is subpar for players around my level, and not just subpar. I think like bad. I think it's a clear weakness for me. And one thing about side starters like this, there's a game. It was from very early in the return, but it comes to mind. Kano was playing Wingus, or sorry, Koner, as I've been told to pronounce it, and no one ever told me any different. Koner was playing Wingus. And obviously, Koner is a player with incredible pedigree, and Wingus likes to capture, right? Wingus is obviously better than like a pure capture bot. And Wingus got a tie against me in opening fan league and played a really nice game there. But but Wingus tends to play the captures. And so Koner should be just huge favorite there. And Koner ends up starting with a side starter where basically he just doesn't have the safe recapture. And Wingus is capture botting ways of, oh, I can go next to it and play safely. Oh, you went on at the other side? Well, I can capture that. Ended up just being a really effective tool against it. And I think if you have a tough situation against a kind of defensive side starter like this, the moves that punish it are likely to be the most obvious moves. It's there's this common concept in various competitive games of if you are winning, you want simplicity, right? If you are winning and nothing complex happens, your winningness will not change and you will win the game. If you are losing, you need complexity. If nothing changes, then you are simply going to lose. But the more complicated it is, the more room the opponent has to make mistakes, right? We want to maximize complexity if we are losing, or simply like if you are playing a player better than you. Now, sometimes their style will mean this isn't the case, or your style will mean it isn't. But on average, if you are playing someone better than you, the more complex a game. Now, maybe you might say the better players are better because they're able to handle complexity and you are weaker because it's simpler. So maybe this isn't quite the right way of saying it. But the more randomness you insert into the position, the better it is for the player who's behind, and the worse it is for the player who's better. And usually, complexity adds some measure of randomness. You might say it doesn't against like Seto, because you might be like, well, Seto plays perfectly no matter what, who cares? But in general, if you are losing or behind in a game, you want to add randomness. And if you are ahead or winning, um, or the better player, you want to decrease randomness. And often that's going to connect to keeping it simpler or making it more complicated. With Dalamar's hand, this was just going to be an incredibly difficult game to play. And so, under those circumstances, I don't really blame anyone for any moves made. In fact, this might have been one of the better tries. But what I would suggest is that defensive side starters lead to an a clear sequence of moves. And if that sequence of moves is bad for you, then it is likely the opponent is going to play that clear sequence. And playing something in 5 or somewhere else, or a corner, can simply be a better way, not necessarily a better move, but a way where, and I mean, I prefer corners to 5, but a way where maybe the path to advantage is not so clear. Maybe it's not so obvious what the sequence is. And here, what I'm saying probably doesn't apply because the problem was they're just going to play a safe corner, right? The very standard moves were very dangerous. And so I don't know. I kind of don't think there was a move that said, okay, all the standard things you can do lose danger. Maybe something like Pig in 5, but it's really hard to believe that that actually does anything. So I think on the kind of how do you defend the worst positions, you leave some complexity there, and you leave it so it's not just the most obvious move is likely to work. Now, maybe the most obvious move does work, but you want to do something that either makes it less obvious or like makes it look less promising, which is making it less obvious. Um, and so I'm a little skeptical. The Conor Wingus game really sticks in my head as here was a game the player playing should not have lost, and they played something that made the correct moves for the opponent very easy to find. This is somewhere, just to make a chess analogy, I think this comes up in chess a bit, where the computer will say a bunch of moves are of similar value in chess, and someone will be like, well, this move was just as good as these other moves. And to any strong human's eyes, like, this was obviously a huge mistake. The computer defends against both options equally well, but one of them posed incredibly difficult problems, and one of them posed incredibly easy problems. Now, it turns out if those problems are solved, then both lead to even positions, so the computer evaluates it as equal. But one of them very likely to win you the game, the other one not remotely likely to win you the game. And so a move the computer doesn't flag at all, the computer just goes, yeah, that doesn't change my evaluation at all, can in fact be a horrendous blunder, and a really bad move and a sign of like not being as strong. Um, so you don't want to make the lines as obvious when you're behind. And I liked Dalamar's move in 3 for that, right? Kind of if you start taking something, it makes it clear where the action is next. And I think the move in 3 was good for making Cliffy's move not that obvious. And Cliffy found a good move, and Cliffy deserved to win here, deserved to win this game. But and Dalamar I think did pretty well. But I'm a little skeptical of the move in 4. Though this hand was terrible. There's like you lose with this hand, it doesn't mean anything. Uh, which is to say, there are a bunch of games where someone gets a really bad random and they lose, and I would assign no blame to them. I would assign credit to the winner, though. I think Cliffy had to correctly evaluate, and there were probably multiple wins, but correctly find a win on move 6, and I don't think that was trivial. And had to correctly identify that the straightforward path was really good, which I don't think was trivial either. So I think Cliffy played really well here, but also Dalamar's hand was just not playable. It's not a thing. All right. So this means we'll get soon Deli versus Cliffy. Then we'll get the winner of that versus Akiyama. And then we get the winner of that versus Turds for the finals. Uh, if Cliffy beats Delial, first of all, that would be incredibly impressive. But second of all, it would mean Cliffy, a very new player, would already have 2 semifinals under their belt, which would just be incredible. Like, there have been better starting runs, like Doc Evil, is the obvious one. But of players in more modern eras, if Cliffy ends up with 2 semifinals here already in his young career, that is just truly remarkable. If Deli wins, on the other hand, then our semifinals are Deli Alcedo, Akiyama, and Turds. That's got to be one of the best Final Fours that we've had. Right? I mean, there have been a lot of very good ones. There's certainly competition. Actually, I have a sheet. I have a sheet. I put this together fairly recently. One moment. We are going to look at a sheet with horrible color coding. And I'm going to reply to a message while it loads. Right. I'm so good at replying to messages. Okay, I made a chart of tournament top 8s. And I color-coded some players. Did that share properly? Yeah. I color-coded some players. Um, some of the big, but not near all the big names. No disrespect to people I didn't. Broccoli, Scythe, and D, I ran out of colors before I got to, and I really wanted to color-code them. Or colors that look different enough. But it's just so, like, you can look at the page and be like, I wonder where Kamikaze is. Okay, he's here, he's here, he's here. That's a lot of early quarterfinals, a semifinals, a win, another finals. Man, Kamikaze's really good from 2003 to '07. Then he disappears for a bit, and then he comes back a little later. But you can kind of look and just see how often and where a name pops up, right? This is championships, finalists, semifinals. I listed it so the semifinalists that lost to the champ is listed first, and then the 4 quarterfinalists where they are listed in order of who they lost to. So Synthetic Dreams lost to Kaus, Seto lost to Spitfire, Shadow 12 lost to Bloody Abyss, and Mastermind lost to Spike. I also italicized tournaments that had odd formats. For instance, TTAC 1 had a final 3 and a final 6. And rather than just extend the chart a lot, I just showed the top 6 in situations like that. But what were we looking up? We were looking up Cliffy's start. We're comparing it to other people. We go down towards the present. We have Cliffy here. There's definitely something I meant to look up. Oh yeah. Best top 4s. So Delhi Seto in a top 4 is already better than so many of these. Like if you love the old names, right? Something like this is gonna really pop to you. I think that's a very impressive early top 4. And some others might pop to you, but this is the one that pops most to me. This one also really pops. This one, if not for Zwinukum. But I think this has got to be stronger than that. That's really good. I mean, there's a lot of these that are very good. Just looking at the first 4 names. Okay. Delhi Kazi is obviously weaker than Delhi Seto, but it's pretty close. I mean, I tend to have turds a little higher than Kaus, but they're obviously comparable. But Kazdon is worse than Akiyama, so okay, that one doesn't get us there. This one, Rhinoa 1, and Triad Wars 6. Now, Triad Wars 6 was a top 3, so Koner sort of I listed 4th, but it's really a top 3. And this was a top 3 as well, so Great Sephiroth doesn't really count. Okay, we're not going to include those. We're looking for top 4s. All right. This is pretty good, but not as good. This is great as well, but not as good. Okay. Irvine. Is Irvine there? It also has Delhi and Seto. And you trade out Turds and Akiyama for me and Scythe. I think this looks better, but 2 things worth keeping in mind. 1, Scythe was at the absolute peak of his powers at this point in time. So, like, at some points in time, you might not be that impressed by Scythe, but look, Scythe, Scythe, Scythe. But second of all, this was like my 3rd tournament. And I have a really good run after this, but I'm not sure I'm me yet. But I might have been me, but I'm not sure. Irvine's up there. Delhi wins that one. I think Triad Wars 7 also looks up there. Sid looks really good. So Irvine, Triad Wars 7, Sid. That's a really strong 3 tournament run, is it not? But I'm not sure any of them beat this one. What else pops? Ooh, Triad Wars 8. That's pretty good. That might be the best yet. And I have said that's quite possibly the best tournament ever won. I think TTAC8 is very good, but not quite there, right? They both have turds. And this is turds like post Vincent. This is a very good turds. And like Sujiro and Akiyama, I've compared a lot, but Delhi and Seto are better than Great Sephiroth and Nightwish, so this isn't there. Squall, probably not there. Rufus, probably not there. It's kind of easy to look because you just look for things where all four names have a color. That's not going to be quite right, but it's a decent way to look. Then Naki, I've said, had the best top 8 ever. Look at this top 8. That's a really good top 8. No Delhi or Seto, though, which is a clear argument against it as a top 8. Okay. This had a weird semifinals. Ignore that one. This is very good. This is very good. Okay. Delhi Yojimbo, pretty similar to Delhi Seto. Akiyama, pretty similar to Akiyama. And then it's Slash of Time traded out for turds. Ooh, maybe Sephiroth's the pick. Maybe Sephiroth is the best top 4. Another Delhi turd Seto. Okay. This is the Triad Wars 14 had the exact same top 4 if Delhi gets there. Right? Delhi does need to beat Cliffy to get there. But if Delhi gets there, it's the exact same top 4 as Triad Wars 14, but with Delhi and I swapped, which is, neutral. I think TTAC 14 is one of the most fun top 4s ever. In that, like, they're all great, but it's not obvious any one of them is big favorite over the others. Like, it's not like, if you look at something like, I don't know, Yojimbo, Chicken Eater, Smoke, Kazdon, like, Fusion Cloud's really good. It's a little weaker, sure, but, like, Yojimbo is clear favorite among these 4, even if the others are really good. But this one's just a great top 4. Okay. Yeah. All right, so Triad Wars 14, just incredibly similar top 4. And I think Sephiroth might be the best top 4. There was another really good one, really stood out. Triad Wars 8 is just great. I feel like I'm missing something now. Anyways, you can rewind and see, or whatever. I don't know what I said. It's all gone minutes later. That's okay. So, anyways, Kefka could have a really nice top section. I can't put in any of the names yet, even though we know who a finalist is, because I don't know if he's champ or finals, which means I don't know if Seto is here or here, which means I don't know who's, in these slots. So I can't write anyone in yet. But I think a fun little chart. I didn't spend like any amount of time on the colors, except that I generally gave like darker colors to the players that I ranked a little higher. So like Delial's a dark green, where Turds is a light green. Kind of the ones with the darker versions of the colors tend to be people I have in the top 10, and the ones with lighter iterations of colors tend to be people I have kind of 11 through 20 of all time. Anyhow, I thought it was a fun chart, and it means it's not that hard to look for some of the great top 4s. This is a fantastic, nope, not that. This is a fantastic run of 3 tournaments in a row for the top 4s for each. And if you look at who went out in the quarters, like, they're pretty good for that too. What's the best set? We should end soon. But what's the best set of quarterfinals losers? Like, what's the strongest 4 to go out? Okay, Koner and Yojimbo is pretty strong. Team Rhinoas are going to have things like that a lot. It's probably going to be from a Team Rhinoa. This is pretty strong. This is very strong. I really like Irvine's. Okay. Do we ever have one where I have all 4 with colors? Ooh, Nanaki probably does win this. A lot of good ones. Those are 2 very strong sequences. Keep in mind, Acela, tournament winner, very good. All right, some options there too. Anywho, just wanted something where I could be like, How's Sujiro? All right, we got boom, 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 boom. Great run from 2004 to 2006. Disappears. Oh, pops up again in 2010 with a really nice run. Wow, good job, Sujiro. That kind of thing. All right, we may as well end the video. So obviously I root for Delhi, but if Cliffy made another semifinals, that would be sick. And if we get Delhi versus Akiyama and Turds versus Seto as our two semifinals, it is very hard to ask for more. That's a pretty great top four.